The thing about living in a lighthouse keeper's cottage is that it teaches you to trust angles. Walls don't lie, sightlines don't pretend. If you stand in the kitchen at exactly the right spot, between the old cast iron sink and the beam, I had to jack up 3 inches to stop the whole place from sagging into the sea. You can see straight down the hallway without being seen yourself. That's how I watched my wife practice her face in the mirror. Not makeup, not hair, a face. She tilted her head a little, softened her eyes, parted her lips like she'd just been wronged by the universe, and was still brave enough to show up anyway. Then she reset, tried a sharper version, something between wounded and offended, the kind of expression that says, "I'm the victim, but don't you dare comfort me wrong." I didn't make a sound. I stirred my coffee like it needed encouragement to exist. Lena didn't know I could see her. People assume old houses are romantic. They don't think about geometry. They don't think about how every shortcut and temporary fix becomes permanent, and how every permanent thing becomes a place to hide. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. She turned, caught sight of herself again, and smiled, real this time, for half a second. Then she stepped out of view and walked toward the kitchen like she'd been walking toward the kitchen all her life. "Morning," she said, bright, too bright, like a porch light that flickers when the wiring is bad. "Morning," I answered, because I was raised correctly. She kissed my cheek. Her lips were cool. There was a faint scent on her that wasn't her usual perfume, something sharp and metallic underneath the sweet. Motor oil has a smell you never forget if you've ever changed it with your own hands. It clings. It lives in your nails like a grudge. I told myself it was nothing. I'd been telling myself that a lot lately. Lena opened the refrigerator, stared inside as if it contained a different life she wanted to select from a shelf, then closed it again without taking anything. "You're up early," she said. "So are you." She laughed. It landed wrong, like a coin tossed into a dry well. I couldn't sleep. Too much on my mind. I waited for the rest. It didn't come. That's another thing old houses teach you. When something is missing, you feel it. A nail head that shouldn't be exposed. A draft where there wasn't one yesterday. A silence in a conversation that used to be filled with small, stupid comforts. Lena leaned her hip against the counter. Her phone was in her hand, screen down, the kind of move people do when they want you to believe they're not hiding anything. "Listen," she said, and the porch light got brighter. "We need to talk about my parents." Here it comes, I thought. A demand disguised as a concern, an expense disguised as a necessity. She loved those. She collected them like seashells. "What about them?" I asked. "They're worried about us." "Are we trending again?" I said. "Did we go viral on the Henson family group chat?" That got me a look. The mirror face, version 2. Offended, slightly injured. She had a whole wardrobe of expressions, and she changed them faster than outfits. "I'm serious, Ethan." "I know. That's why it's funny." She exhaled through her nose. "They think you've been distant." I almost said, "I've been rebuilding this house since before we got married, Lena. I've been rebuilding everything. My time, my patience, my own spine." But I didn't say any of that, because you can't explain a slow collapse to someone who only hears noise when it's loud. "I've been busy," I said. "With what?" she asked, and there it was. Not curiosity. An audit. "With work, with the cottage, with the roof that keeps trying to become the floor." She rolled her eyes, but she did it gently, like she was trying to keep the situation sweet, like she was trying to keep me sweet. "I just want you to make more effort," she said. "That's all." Her phone buzzed against her palm, one short vibration. She didn't move, didn't glance, didn't flinch. Then, 2 seconds later, she lifted it casually, too casually, and the screen lit up for the briefest moment before she angled it away. I caught a reflection in the microwave door, a message preview, white letters, dark background. "Can you sneak out later?" Not a name, just that sentence, hanging there like a hook in water. Lena tapped the screen so fast I almost respected it. The notification vanished. She set the phone down face down again, like gravity had suddenly become important. "You want coffee?" I asked. "I'm good," she said quickly. "I actually have to run soon." "Where to?" I kept my voice light, just a husband asking a normal question in a normal kitchen on a normal morning. That's the lie couples tell themselves. Normal is a place you can return to if you keep the lights on. She hesitated. Half a beat. "Work thing," she said. "Early meeting at the clinic." "It's Saturday." "We're doing inventory," she said, and she smiled the mirror smile. Version 1. Soft, patient, brave. I nodded like a fool who deserved his own cautionary tale. Lena grabbed her purse from the chair. The strap snagged on something and she yanked it free with a flash of irritation that made her look like herself for a split second. Something fell out. Not loudly. A small slip of paper fluttering down near the baseboard like a leaf that knows winter is coming. She didn't notice, or she pretended not to. I stepped forward, picked it up, and looked at it. A receipt, not from our grocery store, not from the hardware place I practically lived in, from a roadside bar 20 minutes inland. The kind of place with neon beer signs in the windows and a parking lot full of loud engines and louder opinions. Date stamped last night, time stamped 11:38 p.m., and written across the top in block letters, "Tab opened, cash only." Lena was already halfway to the door. "Love you," she called back, too bright again. I held the receipt between my fingers and listened to the cottage settle around me. Old wood has its own language, pops, groans, tiny shifts that mean it's still standing. The front door closed, her car started, gravel crunched, then the sound of it faded down the drive, toward the main road, toward wherever inventory lived on a Saturday morning. I stared at the receipt long enough that the paper warmed against my skin. Then I walked to the hallway and stood where the angle worked, where the geometry told the truth. On the mirror, a smear of fresh fingerprint oil caught the light, right where she'd been practicing, right where she'd leaned in close to make sure she looked convincing. My coffee tasted burned. I folded the receipt carefully, like it was fragile, like it was evidence, like it was a warning someone had slipped into my life and hoped I'd be too polite to open. On the back, pressed faintly into the paper by whatever had been written on top of it, was an outline of letters and numbers, a license plate. Not complete, but enough. Enough to start seeing the house and my marriage from a distance. Enough to understand that the boat docked at our marina didn't belong to us, and that someone had been coming in and out of my life like they'd paid for the key. I didn't follow her right away. That's the part people never believe when you tell them later. They think betrayal flips a switch, that you turn into a bloodhound the second you smell something wrong. In real life, it's quieter. You stand there holding a receipt like it might explain itself if you stare hard enough. I put it on the kitchen table, smoothed it flat with my palm, then deliberately didn't look at it again. First, I washed my mug. Slowly. I rinsed the sink. I wiped the counter. I did the things you do when you're trying to convince your body that the day is still ordinary. Old habit from my job. When systems fail, you don't panic. You stabilize. You check what's real. Then I went upstairs. Lena's side of the bedroom was neat in that performative way she favored. Pillows arranged, throw blanket folded just so. Nothing out of place except for the thing that had been bothering me for weeks now that I finally let myself see it. Her closet door wasn't fully closed. It never was anymore. Inside, her clothes were grouped by mood instead of season. Work confidence on the left, soft weekend innocence on the right. In the middle, a newer cluster, tight black, leather adjacent, Things I didn't remember buying or seeing her wear for me. I didn't touch anything. I've learned that hands are clumsy liars. They want to grab, to prove. Eyes are better witnesses. On the floor near the base of the closet was a smudge, not dirt, grease, the faint half-moon of a boot sole that didn't belong in our bedroom. I crouched, took a picture with my phone, and stood back up. That was it. That was the moment. Not rage, not heartbreak. Calibration. I checked the time. 8:17 a.m. Lena had left less than 10 minutes ago. She'd said inventory, which was funny if you knew anything about the med spa she worked at. Inventory there meant lip gloss and needles, and it never happened before noon because half the staff treated mornings like a personal insult. I grabbed my keys and my jacket and locked the door behind me. The drive inland took 23 minutes if you obeyed the speed limit and didn't believe in shortcuts. I did both. The road curved away from the water, trading salt air for pine and damp asphalt. My mind did that thing it does when it's trying not to think. Started cataloging details. The radio was playing something nostalgic, a song about second chances. I turned it off. The bar was exactly where the receipt said it would be. Low building. Neon sign buzzing like it had a problem with commitment. Parking lot already half full for this early, which told me everything I needed to know about the kind of crowd it attracted. I didn't park close. I pulled in across the street, next to a closed bait shop with peeling paint and a hand-lettered sign that read, "Back soon," like a promise no one had followed up on. I waited. 5 minutes passed, then 10. At 12 minutes, the first bike rolled out of the lot, loud enough to announce itself to God. The rider wore his toughness like a costume, arms bare despite the cold, posture screaming that he'd like someone to challenge him just so he could feel important. Not her. Then a truck. Then another bike. At 19 minutes, I saw her. Lena came out laughing. Really laughing. Head thrown back, hand on someone's arm like balance was optional. She wasn't wearing the soft weekend innocence. She was wearing black. Tight jeans. Jacket I'd never seen before, cropped just enough to pretend it wasn't trying. The man beside her was taller than me. Broad. Built in that careless way that comes from lifting heavy things without thinking about the future. His hair was pulled back. There was a patch on his jacket, something with wings and a skull, stylized enough to be legal, ugly enough to be deliberate. She said something. He leaned in close enough that I saw her fingers hook into his sleeve like it was the most natural thing in the world. Then she swung one leg over the bike, not awkward, not hesitant, practiced. She wrapped her arms around his waist and pressed in, her cheek resting between his shoulder blades, like she'd been doing it long enough to know where it fit. The engine roared, heads turned, someone whistled. They pulled out of the lot together, smooth as a rehearsed exit, and merged onto the road heading back toward town. For 3 seconds I didn't move. For the next 3 I did. I waited until there were 2 cars between us, then pulled out and followed. Not close. Never close. Distance is protection. Distance lets you think. They took the long way back, avoiding the main road. The kind of route you choose when you don't want to be seen by people who know you. Trees closed in, houses thinned out. The bike moved with confidence like it owned the space. At a red light, I caught up just enough to read the plate. It matched the impression on the receipt. That was when my phone buzzed. A text from Lena. Running late. Inventory is a mess. Might grab lunch with the girls after. I stared at the screen, then looked up. She was 10 feet in front of me, straddling another man like the world had simplified itself into something loud and easy. I didn't answer. The light turned green. The bike surged forward and took a sudden right turn into a gravel drive I recognized. A garage, not a house, a shop. Big doors, faded signage. Several bikes parked out front like trophies. I drove past, kept going for another quarter mile before turning around in a wide, unhurried arc and parking where I could see the entrance from a distance. I watched her get off the bike, watched him say something that made her laugh again, watched him place a hand at the small of her back, guiding her inside like she belonged there. The garage door rolled down. I sat there longer than I should have, long enough for the truth to stop feeling sharp and start feeling solid, like something you could build around if you knew how. My phone buzzed again. "You okay?" she wrote. "You didn't answer." I typed, "In a meeting. Talk later." It felt almost polite. I drove home with the windows down, letting cold air burn the smell of oil and pine out of my head. When I pulled into the drive, Mrs. Daly was outside watering her hydrangeas, despite the fact that it had rained all night. She waved. I waved back. "Your wife's got a new friend?" she called cheerfully. "Saw her riding past earlier. Looked fast." "Must be," I said. "She's been busy." Mrs. Daly smiled the way people do when they think they've been helpful. "Well, variety keeps things interesting, I suppose." "Sure does," I said. Inside the cottage, the silence felt different now, not empty, loaded. I took the receipt out of my pocket and laid it next to my phone. I opened my notes app and started a list. Times, dates, places, nothing dramatic, just facts. Then I added a second list beneath it. Things Lena thought I didn't notice. I was halfway through when my phone rang. Her name lit up the screen. I let it ring 3 times before answering. "Hey," she said, breathless. "I've had the worst morning." I leaned against the counter and watched the light shift across the floor, tracing the same angle that had shown me her mirror face. "Tell me about it," I said. She hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. Then she started lying. She didn't lie badly. That's what surprised me most. Lena had always been theatrical when she lied to strangers. Too much emotion, too many unnecessary details, like she was padding a resume. With me, she went minimalist. She gave me just enough truth-shaped material to keep things moving. "Inventory ran long," she said. "Then Michelle had a breakdown, so I stayed to help. You know how she is." I did know how Michelle was. Michelle was how everyone was when they needed a name to pin something on. "That sounds exhausting," I said. "It was," Lena replied quickly. Relief crept into her voice. I was cooperating. Cooperation made her brave. "I'm actually on my way home now. Can we talk when I get there?" "We can talk," I said. I didn't say about what. She hung up first, another small tell. Lena always liked to be the one left listening. I didn't sit down. I didn't pace. I stood at the kitchen counter and watched the minute hand on the old wall clock drag itself forward. Every tick felt louder than the last. I thought about the way she'd held onto that man's jacket. The way her body had settled against his like gravity had finally made sense. When her car pulled into the drive, I was still standing in the same place. She came in smiling like someone who'd rehearsed on the drive. Dropped her purse on the chair, kicked off her shoes, all the familiar motions carefully placed back where they belonged. "Hey," she said softly. "You okay?" "I'm fine." She studied my face, looking for cracks. Finding none seemed to unsettle her more than anger would have. "I was thinking," she said, lowering her voice. "Maybe we should get some help." There it was. "Help how?" I asked. She sat at the table, folded her hands together, and leaned forward. The mirror face made a return, this time adjusted for compassion. "I've been going through something," she said. "I didn't want to worry you, but I got involved with someone who wasn't good for me." I kept my expression neutral, a man watching weather roll in. "He treated me like trash," she continued. "Manipulative, cruel. I thought I could handle it, but I couldn't. It really messed me up." In my head, I replayed the way she'd laughed that morning, the way she'd leaned in close, relaxed and certain. "I need therapy," she said. "Real therapy, to heal from him. And I need you to help me pay for it." There it was again. The audacity. Not loud, not aggressive, just confident. Like she was submitting a receipt for damages she expected me to cover. I nodded slowly. I know a great specialist, I said. Her shoulders dropped a fraction. Relief. Victory. She reached across the table and touched my hand. Thank you, she whispered. I knew you'd understand. Get your things, I said. She blinked. What? Your things, I repeated. Pack a bag. 2 if you need it. Her smile faltered. Ethan, what are you— I'll drive, I added, already moving toward the stairs. Confusion followed me up. She stood there a moment, then hurried after me, asking questions I didn't answer. I packed nothing for her. I just watched as she stuffed clothes into a suitcase with shaking hands, trying to adjust to a script that had gone off the rails. Where are we going? She asked again. You'll see. The drive was quiet. She tried once more to take my hand. I kept both of mine on the wheel. The road to her parents' house ran through a neighborhood that prided itself on trimmed hedges and early bedtimes. Respectable, observant. I pulled into their driveway and stopped the car right at the edge of the lawn. Lena stared. My parents? Yes. She laughed, sharp and brittle. Ethan, this isn't funny. I got out, walked around to the trunk, and lifted her bags out one by one. I set them down carefully on the grass, right where anyone passing by could see. What are you doing? She hissed. I closed the trunk and looked at her. Really looked this time. You said you need therapy, I said. They treat patients for free here. Her face drained of color. The front door opened. Her father stepped out, squinting in the afternoon light, confusion already written deep across his features. Lena, he called. What's going on? She turned toward him, mouth opening, searching for words that would still work. I didn't stay to hear them. I got back in the car and pulled away, leaving her standing there between her luggage and her childhood home, caught in the open where her stories had nowhere to hide. In the rearview mirror, I saw her father raise a hand, not waving, just unsure. I drove until the house disappeared behind a bend in the road. That was the public ending of my marriage. Clean, simple, almost polite. My phone buzzed before I hit the main road. Unknown number. I answered without slowing down. You think that was clever? A man's voice said. Low, amused. I smiled to myself and kept driving. Who is this? I asked. A pause. Then, you know who this is? I did, and for the first time since the morning I felt something like anticipation settle in my chest. I didn't answer him right away. Silence is a language men like that understand better than words. It tells them you're not startled. It tells them you're choosing what happens next. I don't, I said finally. But I'm guessing you're about to tell me. He laughed. Not loud, comfortable. The sound of someone who thought he already had leverage. You embarrassed her, he said. That wasn't smart. I dropped off her bags, I replied. You're thinking of a different word. Another pause. I imagined him picturing me, hands shaking, jaw clenched, driving too fast. Men like him needed their opponents small to feel tall. You like making scenes? He asked, because that can go both ways. Then we have something in common, I said. I just prefer daylight. The call ended. No threat, no shouting. Just a line left hanging in the air like a wire you don't see until you walk into it. I drove home slower than usual. Not because I was afraid, but because I wanted to remember everything exactly as it was before it changed. The way the road dipped near the old oak. The mailbox with the crooked post. The cottage sitting back from the water like it had secrets of its own. When I pulled in, Mrs. Daly's porch light was on, even though it was still bright out. She sat in her chair, knitting something aggressively pink. Everything all right? She called. Depends who you ask, I said. She nodded, like that made sense. Your wife came by earlier. I stopped with my hand on the door. Did she? Yes, looked upset. Asked if you were home. Mrs. Daly lowered her voice, which was impressive considering her volume never really changed. I told her you'd gone out. Appreciate it. She smiled. I mind my business. I just happened to notice things. So did I. Inside, the cottage felt alert, like it knew something had shifted. I locked the door, checked the windows, not out of panic, out of habit. When systems get stressed, you verify your perimeter. I sat at the table and added a new section to my notes. Contact, unknown number, male, confident, assumes authority. Below that, I wrote his license plate. Then the garage name I'd seen on the sign. Then the time. Patterns don't mean anything until they do. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Lena. You didn't have to do that. My parents are asking questions. You're scaring them. I stared at the messages until the words lost their edges. I typed back, tell them the truth. The typing bubbles appeared, disappeared, appeared again. He says you're unstable. He says you're acting irrational. I defended you. That was new. I didn't reply. Instead, I stood and walked through the house, room by room, noticing what was still mine and what had quietly become shared territory without my consent. In the bathroom drawer, her second phone charger. In the hall closet, a helmet liner stuffed behind the coats like a guilty thought. In the trash, a torn strip of paper with the corner of a logo I recognized from the garage. I bagged it all, labeled it, put it in a storage bin in the shed. Then I sat down at my desk and made a call of my own. Nora Pike, the voice on the other end said. If this is about a fence dispute, you're too late. It's about my wife, I said, and the man she thinks is protecting her. There was a beat of silence. Then, paper rustled. Start at the beginning, Nora said, and don't editorialize. So I didn't. I gave her dates, times, locations. I told her what I'd seen, what I'd heard, and what I'd been told about myself. When I finished, she let the quiet sit. Okay, she said at last. First thing, don't respond to either of them directly anymore. Not without me. Second thing, he's trying to frame you as the problem. I figured. Good, because men like that only pick fights they think they can win. She paused. Do you have security cameras? I manage facilities, I said. What do you think? Then you're already ahead, she replied. But listen carefully, Ethan. This only stays clean if you stay calm. No hero moves. No confrontations unless they're public and documented. I thought of the laugh on the phone. The way he'd said, clever. I can do calm, I said. I believe you, Nora replied. One more thing. What's that? If he calls again, let it go to voicemail. The line clicked silent. That night, I didn't sleep much. Not because I was scared, but because my mind had shifted into problem-solving mode, and it doesn't come with an off switch. Around 2:40 a.m., headlights swept briefly across the front of the cottage. They slowed, then moved on. I got up, walked to the window, and looked out at the empty road. By morning, I had a plan. By morning, the plan wasn't something I'd written down. It lived in my head the way blueprints do. Layers, contingencies, load-bearing truths. I made coffee, fed the quiet, and waited for the town to wake up. It didn't take long. The first call came from Lena's mother. Marla didn't bother with hello. What did you do to my daughter? She demanded. I dropped her off, I said. Alive, with luggage. She's been crying all night. That happens. You humiliated her. I leaned against the counter and watched the water beyond the windows. The tide was low. Everything ugly likes to surface then. She humiliated herself, I said. I just chose the location. Marla inhaled sharply, preparing a speech she'd probably been polishing since midnight. I ended the call before she could deliver it. Nora's rule echoed in my head. No engagement, no fuel. The second call came from my boss, Brandon Klein, just after 9. Got a minute? He asked, tone careful. I've got 5. There's a concern, he said. Nothing formal yet, just Chatter. About me. Yes. I closed my eyes just for a second. Let me guess. I'm volatile, unpredictable, possibly dangerous in a vague, unprovable way. Brandon sighed. Something like that. Do I still have access to my sites? I asked. Yes. Then we're fine. Ethan, I'll document everything, I said, like I always do. When I hung up, I didn't feel angry. I felt confirmed. I spent the afternoon doing what I do best, checking systems, camera logs, entry timestamps, neighbors' sightlines. The gas station footage request went in quietly. Public place, public record, no drama. At 4:12 p.m., Lena texted again. He says you're setting him up. He says you're dangerous when cornered. Please just talk to him. I stared at the message until the words rearranged themselves into something honest. She wasn't afraid of him. She was afraid of losing control of the story. I didn't reply. Instead, I drove to the garage, not to confront him, not yet. I parked across the street, same spot as before, and watched. The place was busy. Saturday crowd, engines revving, men performing toughness for one another like it was a shared religion. He moved through them comfortably, king of a small kingdom that existed mostly in his head. I noticed the details he didn't think about. The cracked oil pan under the lift, the unsecured rack of tools, the way his crew laughed a half-second too late at his jokes. Power that needs applause isn't power. It's a request. I left before anyone noticed me. That night, the call came again. Voicemail, like Nora said. You're making this harder than it has to be, his voice said, calm and amused. You should come talk to me, man to man. I saved the message, labeled it, backed it up. Then I slept. The next day, I woke to rain and a knock on the door. I didn't open it right away. I checked the cameras first. It wasn't him. It was Lena. She stood on the porch in a jacket she'd never worn for me, arms folded tight around herself like she was bracing for impact. Her eyes went to the cameras immediately. Not fear, calculation. I opened the door just enough to speak. You can't be here, I said. I needed to see you, she whispered. Please. Talk, I said. From there. She swallowed. He's angry. Good. He says you're trying to ruin him. I smiled, small and tired. I haven't done anything yet. That scared her. You don't understand, she said. He's not like you. He doesn't play fair. I don't play, I replied. I document. She stepped closer. The rain soaked into her hair. For a moment, she looked like someone I used to know. He told my parents you were unstable, she said quickly, that you scared him, that you're obsessed. And you corrected him? I asked. Her silence answered for her. I nodded. You should go. Ethan. You made a choice, I said. Now live in it. She stood there another second, then turned away, heels slipping on the wet wood. As she walked back to her car, I noticed something new. A faint tremor in her hands. That evening, I made one last call. Not to the police, not to the garage, to a woman whose name I'd seen twice in the public reviews of that shop. Different usernames, same phrasing, same timeline. She answered on the third ring. Yes? My name is Ethan, I said. I think we have something in common. There was a long pause. Then she said, very quietly, I was wondering when someone would notice. I leaned back in my chair and listened to the rain hit the roof like applause. The final pieces were starting to align. The woman's name was Claire Dunn. She didn't give it to me right away. People who've been burned don't lead with their real names. They lead with caution. We talked for 40 minutes. I didn't interrupt. I didn't correct her. I didn't say that happened to me, too, because this wasn't about bonding. It was about pattern recognition. He's charming until you're inconvenient, she said. Then he gets creative. Creative how? Pressure. Isolation, making you feel like you're the unstable one. She laughed once, dry and humorless. Sound familiar? I thought of Lena's texts. Of the way words like irrational and obsessed had suddenly appeared in conversations where they'd never lived before. Yes, I said. It does. Claire didn't want revenge. She wanted distance. She wanted the truth to exist somewhere outside her head. I won't drag you into anything, I told her. But if someone asks what you experienced, would you answer honestly? She hesitated. Then, if it's public, yes. That was enough. 2 nights later, the test came. I was halfway through dinner when the motion alert chimed on my phone. Front yard. 8:17 p.m. I didn't move. I finished chewing. I swallowed. Then I checked the feed. 2 men stood near the edge of my property, just past the line where gravel met grass. One I recognized from the garage. The other I didn't. Both wore jackets. Both stood too comfortably, like they expected the world to adjust around them. One of them raised a hand and waved at the camera. I turned on the porch light, then the floodlights, then every exterior light on the property, all at once, like a stage cue. Across the street, Mrs. Daly's curtains twitched. Then her porch light flicked on. 2 houses down, a dog started barking. I stepped onto the porch, phone in hand, recording. "Evening," I said. They didn't smile. "You're causing problems," the unfamiliar one said. "I'm standing on my porch," I replied. "Problems usually need more ambition." The man from the garage took a step forward. "You should stop." I tilted my phone slightly so they could see themselves on the screen. "You're being recorded. So are the cameras. So are the neighbors." Behind them, a car slowed on the road. Someone honked, annoyed by the obstruction. The unfamiliar man glanced back, hesitated. Men like this don't fear consequences. They fear witnesses. "We're just talking," he said. "Then we're done," I answered, "because I don't talk to strangers on my lawn." They stood there another second, weighing pride against exposure. Pride lost. As they walked away, the garage guy turned and said, "This isn't over." I smiled. Nothing ever is. I went inside, locked the door, and uploaded the footage to 3 separate places. That was part 7 of their plan. Part 8 was mine. The charity mixer was scheduled for Thursday night at the Waterfront Pavilion. Med spa sponsors, influencers, donors who liked their generosity photographed from flattering angles. Lena had posted about it twice already, positioning herself as both survivor and professional. I didn't post anything. I just showed up. Clean jacket, neutral expression, phone charged, Nora's voice in my head reminding me to speak only when necessary. Lena saw me from across the room and froze. Not in fear, panic. The kind that comes when you realize the room might not behave the way you expect. He arrived 10 minutes later. Leather jacket, confident stride, eyes scanning for threats that didn't look like threats yet. Claire was already there, not beside me, not near him, just present, visible, real. When Lena took the microphone, the room quieted the way it always does when someone expects applause. She spoke about healing, about boundaries, about surviving difficult relationships. She didn't say my name. She didn't have to. When she finished, the applause came, polite, practiced. Then someone asked a question. Not me. Claire. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't accuse. She just described dates, behavior, words that had been used to control and confuse. The room shifted. Phones came up. Whispers started. The biker moved first, stepped forward, tried to laugh it off. I stepped beside Claire. "Public conversation," I said calmly. "You wanted that." Lena looked between us, the color draining from her face as the narrative slipped out of her hands and onto the floor where everyone could see it. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't threaten anyone. I just let the pattern speak for itself, And when the room finally went quiet, really quiet, I turned and walked out, the sound of the water loud behind me, my phone still recording, knowing the story had already finished telling itself. The pavilion emptied faster than I expected, not in a rush, in fragments. People don't flee truth, they leak away from it, quietly, hoping no one notices the direction they chose. Lena stood frozen near the sponsor banner, hands clenched so tight her knuckles had gone white. Her parents hovered a few steps behind her, confusion curdling into something colder as phones buzzed around them. No one touched her, no one comforted her. Comfort requires certainty, and certainty had left the room. He followed me outside. Of course he did. The wind off the water cut sharp, carrying the smell of salt and gasoline from the docks. His bike sat near the edge of the lot, polished to a mirror shine, positioned like a threat he expected me to respect. "Hey," he said, louder than necessary. "You think you won something in there?" I stopped walking and turned. Up close, he didn't look bigger, just louder. The kind of man who relied on momentum because stillness made him nervous. "You like embarrassing people," he said. "You like hiding behind crowds." "I like witnesses," I replied. "There's a difference." He stepped closer. Too close. He wanted the moment to tip. He wanted me to flinch. I didn't. Instead, I reached into my jacket pocket and took out the small plastic bag I'd been carrying all evening. Inside was the torn strip of paper I'd found in my trash days ago, the one with the garage logo, the one he'd thought was nothing. I dropped it at his feet. "What's that supposed to be?" he scoffed. "Proof you were in my house," I said calmly. "Which means this conversation ends right now." He laughed, but it came out wrong. Too quick, too sharp. "You don't have proof of anything." I nodded toward the bike. "Before you start it," I said, "you might want to look underneath." He hesitated. Just a second. Then he crouched. The oil pan beneath his bike was split, not destroyed, not catastrophic. Just enough of a clean, deliberate crack to let a slow, shining line of oil drip steadily onto the pavement. Not an accident. Not vandalism that screamed. A message. He straightened, eyes burning. "You touch my bike?" "I didn't," I said. "Gravity did. Cracks happen when pressure's applied in the wrong place." People had stopped nearby. A few donors, a couple of staff, phones out again instinctively. Someone murmured his name, not admiring this time. "You're threatening me," he said. "No," I replied. "I'm explaining cause and effect." He raised his hand then, not to hit me, to scare me. I stepped forward and slapped him, not hard, not dramatic, just enough. The sound was sharp in the night air, echoing off the water. His head snapped to the side. The room, what was left of it, went perfectly still. "That," I said evenly, "was for coming to my house." For a moment I thought he might explode. Instead, he looked around and saw what I saw. Witnesses, cameras, consequences. He lowered his hand, took a step back, then another. Behind him, Lena watched, her mouth open, her story completely gone now. No villain left to hide behind, no hero left to cling to. I didn't look at her. I turned and walked away, the sound of oil dripping onto pavement steady behind me, knowing he wouldn't be riding anywhere tonight, knowing she wouldn't be rewriting anything ever again. I didn't feel relief. I felt finished. And I didn't look back.